Episode of Provoking Conversations. We're at episode number 2 here, número 2. This episode is going to be a little different than the first episode. The first one was just kind of to give you guys a base on what the conversations would look like, and almost like what the broad topic of everything kind of is, because we're self-learning, we're, investigating ourselves and investigating our lives, to further develop them. So this week we're actually starting a new segment that we might do every other episode or so, depending on how we ended up structuring it. But it's called the Self-Building Challenges. This week we are focusing on viewpoints. And what we mean by that is, I would say, basically how the way you view yourself compares to the way other people view you, and how you think other people view you. So it's kind of 3 components. And then we'll kind of finish that off with checking to see how that influences what we build our self-worth around. So it's a pretty loaded episode. There's a lot behind all of those topics. And yeah, I don't know, is there anything else you'd like to say before we get going?
No, I think you covered it really well. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Yeah, for sure. This was difficult. And we kind of talked about this before going on, but just this exploration itself, it brought a lot of challenges and it brought a lot of questions. But I think we both say we both discovered a lot of things about ourselves as well. I know for me, I was admitting things to myself that I hadn't admitted to myself before, which that was kind of crazy. As I was writing it down, I was like, well, I never really told myself that before, so that's kind of interesting. So I'm nervous and anxious to kind of go over that, but I'm also excited to kind of hear what your journey was like in those last few days, because we only give ourselves a few days to get this all figured out, and it was jam-packed for sure. But yeah, I don't know, you want to, before we get going on the actual questions, you want to kind of speak on your overall experience?
Yeah, overall, I think a lot like you, man. It was interesting. Much like you, I felt like there were things that have been in my mind, maybe in different points in time, but it finally came down on like the 2 pieces of paper that I really wrote heavily on, and there was like a lot of realizations that kind of made about myself and kind of the way that I've thought about myself, and also in the way that I've projected my thoughts out onto others and what I imagine that they think of me. And then along with that, like all the feedback that I got was also very, it was very, very interesting, like a very interesting feeling, because it's like, obviously, being a part of the military, like there's specific moments where I would get feedback and stuff, and it all felt very structured, felt very formal,
Yeah.
It's a lot of like verbiage, a lot of like specific, like technical language. And when asking people like what they think and what they truly think of you and stuff, and the answers that they kind of gave back, it was like, wow, it was, I don't know, it struck a chord within me. It was a very interesting experience. And I'm gonna leave it at that for right now before I get too into it, because I think there's a lot to unpack here, man. Like there's a lot of good stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive right in. I'm sure the people are interested to kind of see what we learned from all this. So we'll start with the first question that I think we both focused on. Was how do you think others view you, right? We kind of wanted to do that first before we got influenced by what other people said, or at least in the writing. Because obviously people have told us throughout our lives how they view us, but where we kind of have a picture. We wanted to kind of explore that topic first before we ask for feedback, basically. So I'll let you get started and kind of give me a rundown of how you thought others view you.
So how I thought others viewed me.
Yes.
So, man. So I've talked about this part before. I'll start here. I had like multiple little paragraphs that I wrote, but I'll start with this one. So I think I talked about this in the last episode, and if not, I've definitely mentioned it to you. It was, all throughout my life, I always felt like I was always being judged. Like there was always like a point in my life where wherever I went, whatever I did, I always felt like, I kind of had something to prove, how I always felt kind of like, oh, they probably think I'm stupid because of this one thing that I did. And I projected a lot of like negative emotions out, but in towards myself. It's kind of like a weird loop. So I was like, I was imagining that I was putting like negative verbiage and words and thoughts into other people's perspective of what I thought they looked at me through. The lens, right? It's like a very negative lens that I imagined that they looked at me through, and so that was one of them. And so kind of the way that I dealt with that. First it manifested itself in my life in many different ways. So I was trying to find like specific moments. A lot of them were like around class, had to do with class. So like raising my hand was like something that was, comparable to death, because it was like I didn't really want to, raise my hand, and especially get it wrong.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it was one thing if it was like a small group, like if I knew him and I was comfortable around the people, and then it was just like, okay, I don't care if I look like an idiot, like it's fine. But typically, especially like in those really large lectures of like 100+ people, like no, you're not gonna catch me anywhere doing that. You know what I mean? Like that, I'd rather die. And that was one thing. And then I also had this internal sense, like hypersensitivity to just being wrong, or being messed up. And I guess in a way, like I was very quick to critique myself. And so that kind of takes me to the next part where, I'm very quick to humble myself, and, maybe a little too much. And so it's like, I don't typically take the time to truly praise what I do, because I never really felt like anything that I did was worth praising, And so it was a super interesting thought, because it was like, I never really enjoyed talking myself up, which is one of the things that I really struggle with, especially like interviewing, when somebody would ask like, so who are you? And obviously the whole point of the interview is to talk yourself up so that you get whatever the position is, right? You want to, sell yourself in a way, sell yourself. That's the point. But for me, that was legitimately the hardest question you could ask me. It's like, tell me about yourself. And it's like, well, I know you want to know specific things, and I know you want to know that I'm going to be successful in whatever position you put me in, but all right, so there was that. And I mean, I think those were some of the biggest things. And I'm gonna let you talk for right now, because I'm
let me ask you this. So I feel like you were kind of more describing how you view yourself, right?
No, so that's how I imagined like how others viewed me,
so,
which is
so as in like a shy, humble person, I guess.
That's a good question. Thank you for catching
me there. Because I feel like you're more describing how you kind of view yourself and why that might be it, not necessarily how others would view you.
I think you're right.
Which, I mean, it's fine. Like, you can start with that if you'd like.
No, you're right. You're right. I've no, you didn't catch me off guard. I think so. So it's interesting because like even though I would feel this way, I felt like that's how others also saw me. So they saw me as somebody who was, very sensitive to doing things wrong.
Okay.
And then I always felt like that's why, I was always like, usually I would always get told you're kind of like a wallflower, you don't typically stand out. And they tell me that after they kind of got to know me and they saw like, dude, why are you so quiet? Like you have like all these, you're a fun person to kind of talk to. And so, that's kind of how I always imagined what others thought of me too. So it was like, okay, so here's this quiet kid who is very obvious when he does something wrong because like his face gets all flushed and he starts stumbling over his words and he doesn't like talking out loud in a group of people. And he generally tends to stick to the background. But at the same time, they also perceived me as hardworking. That's what a lot of people told me. It's like you're really hardworking, and that was a really interesting thought, man. Because I've had a lot of people tell me that, and I feel like it's bullshit. Like just not gonna lie, not gonna say that, oh yeah, I worked hard for that, because some of the questions I was like, what does hard work even mean? Like what constitutes hard work? Like why have I always felt lazy all my life? Like what, like it's, yeah. So I don't know, man. Like I said, there's just a lot of things kind of going on in my brain with this whole thing. I feel like this question made me look at myself in a different way, and and I think I'll just add one more thing. Is I felt like I've always projected that people look at me kind of like not a very social person, kind of like with the whole wallflower thing. Like, I mean, I already kind of didn't feel like normal, I guess, trying to talk to new people, but it's usually because I always felt like other people already knew that I wasn't very social, or like they're like, oh, he's kind of weird, and I always felt like I was picking up weird vibes from people. And yeah, I mean, coming from the place that I like, the high school that I went to, I was way different than everybody else, and I feel like that I could kind of pick up that I was different, but I my mind would always move to the negative side. So I don't know, maybe I'm not really answering the question very well, but
no, I think you are. I think I understand a little bit more. That makes more sense.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it at that right now while I stew in my thoughts, but I want you to kind of talk a little bit about kind of your answer to this question.
The way I answered this question, it's kind of interesting. I was, so I kind of wrote, it's kind of hard to see, but I wrote like traits, and I wrote why I think some of my actions may make it seem like that trait fits me, right? I was like, what in my life do I do that other people would interpret this as this trait? So that's kind of the way I approached it. And it was difficult because it was hard to separate the way I view myself from how I think others view me. Because I think the way I view myself is a lot more negative than how other people actually see me, based on the interactions that I have with people. So that's what was so difficult, to try to, and that's kind of when I texted you, I was like, it's hard to try to not be biased, because I had to try to look at this from an outsider's perspective, right? Based on my actions, how would people describe me? So I'll kind of just run down through the list quickly. So the first thing I put, and they're all in quotation, so I put a good person. And I put this because I was like, I typically don't do much to demean others and tend to be friendly to whoever's around me, which to me it felt like most people would equate that to being a good person, you know, because I don't leave at least I don't think I do leave like a sour taste in people's mouth about me, so that will make them think that, oh, he's a good person because he's nice and stuff like that. So I was like, that's probably a trait. I put good listener. I put this because I was like, I give people my attention when they're talking to me, and you know, it makes people feel important if you actually give them attention when they're talking, and people tend to see that as, oh, you're a good listener type of thing. And for all of these traits, I have my counter arguments, so how I view myself later on, which that was the hardest part to kind of get through. So there's more to come for all of these, but I guess this is from the outsider's perspective. I put dependable because I do my job well, and I go out of my way to like help others if I can. So I was like, that would fit in if somebody was trying to describe me. I put humble as well because I don't like to take credit for things and don't ever really look for attention. So I think people try to, they associate that with being humble. Gotta go to the back page. There's just a few more. Hard worker, again, kind of like you. Just again, I always feel like I do what I'm supposed to do, and people just assume that that's hardworking. You know, I think hard work in the minds of others might mean something different in my own mind. So, but that's kind of a word that's always been thrown at me. I put genuine and kind, and again, it kind of went with the good person one, because see, this is why I need to work on my penmanship, because that's
it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, for this one, it just I tend to show like a genuine, like a sense of care for people. Again, it's just because I give them attention when I speak to them or when they're talking to me. Kind of normal gestures that just kind of seem normal to me might seem a little higher than I think they are. So that's why I would attribute those. I put positive because I always try to help people in their situations think of what they're doing in a more positive way. I put relaxed because I have a sense of poise that I kind of carry myself around with, and kind of like a confidence almost. And then I put simple because, again, just never too flashy or really in the need of a spotlight type of thing. Before I keep going, I apologize for the alarm in the background. That's just the buzzer from the apartment, so I apologize for that.
You're good. I thought that was your phone ringing. I was like, you have a home phone? I was like, who still has those?
No one has those anymore. What is that?
My mom does.
But yeah, I kind of stuck. I came up with nine things that I think people could possibly describe me as. And that was hard enough to kind of get through. Because like again, it was harder to be unbiased because in my mind, as soon as I thought of one, I thought of the counter argument based on how I view myself. Yeah. So I kind of had to try to separate those there, but yeah. As far as that question on how I think others view me, I would stick to those.
I mean, you brought up a lot of good points, and I really like the way you did that. Because it didn't really occur to me to focus on the traits. But if anything, I didn't really know how to like truly approach this question. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wrote down whatever was on my mind and kind of thought
from there.
Yeah, and just kind of, ran with it. And I think the thing that stopped me the most was just how, negative that those counter arguments, like you were mentioning, kind of came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things that kind of astounded me, and maybe that's why I kind of stopped writing after a while, because for everything that I wrote down, there was always, this part inside me that was trying to did I sit down,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think I kind of fell into that trap of being too biased
Mm-hmm.
with the way that and that's why I appreciated what others said to me, and that's why I felt like a very, because I already had an idea that it was going to be, there's going to be here's what I think of me. I compare it like this. So here's where I think of me,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where others think of me, and I always figured there's going to be a gap, but damn, dude, I didn't think it was going to be this bad,
Yeah.
it was significantly, there's a significant difference. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, man, I think that's all I got for right now.
Yeah. So if you want, I can start first on how I view myself in comparison to that. And then you
Yeah,
can
man,
kind of
go
hit
for
more
it.
on how you view yourself. So this was the hardest part, I thought, for myself. I wrote a couple pages on this, because I think I was trying to debunk all of the positive traits, right? Or at least explain to myself why I think that, or I don't know, just kind of explore more of it. And let's see. So now I have to try to read my handwriting again. I think the first statement kind of sums it up the most, is, and you're kind of alluded to this, is just being our own harshest critics, right? And obviously that's kind of a saying that goes around, but I felt like it was very applicable and almost like an understatement for myself in comparison to what others view. I put in I expect the world out of myself, regardless of regardless of the actual situation that I'm in or state that I'm in. I'll always expect the best out of myself, even when realistically I shouldn't, because maybe I've exerted myself in other areas, or things like that. But I'll always be like, no, I expect the best out of myself, which I think, well, it's good because it pushes you. It's also can be a hard trait to kind of get over, because it could be kind of detrimental to yourself as well. And I kind of hit on that a little bit later. So talk about the different characteristics, and then I would first I talked about the good listener part. I was I take pride in listening to others, giving them my attention to make them feel welcome. But then I also I know that I also do this because I don't think what I have to say is important. So I'm okay with sitting back and letting others talk. So that was pretty interesting, because I had never actually thought of that until I wrote that down, and I was like, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. Either going with what I have to say isn't important, or just doesn't, it's not as interesting, or just not as pertinent as what other people are saying. So I'm more than happy to take a step back. Ooh, yeah, so that was the first thing. And then, yeah, just kind of talking about not wanting to step on any toes, just I'll let everybody else kind of get their 2 cents in before I say anything. And then I kind of put humble, simple, and relax all kind of together. Because again, I don't like to be flashy or bring any attention to myself. And we kind of talked about this before, feeling like I haven't earned it, or or haven't done anything that needs attention. Because I never really feel like anything's really that big of a deal that I accomplish for the most part. Kind of just celebrate my own victories in silence. And the biggest thing that I took away from that is like, well, two things. Part that I don't think I deserve it or earned it. And I think that feeling comes from seeing it unnecessary to be praised for doing what you're just supposed to do. Because a lot of times I just feel like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Why should I get praised for that? Regardless of whether I'm actually accomplishing something big or small, it just seems like, oh, it's just something I'm supposed to do, so why should I get praised?
Yeah.
So that was a internal debate as well. And then, yeah, like I would say I'm pretty quiet and reserved. And then I kind of dissected that a little bit more, and I kind of attributed that to my dad, because my dad is like, I've always been the biggest role model in my life and like my biggest influence, and he carries himself in a very stoic and very calm fashion. Like to this day, he's still the most patient person I've ever met in my life. And I think I've modeled a lot of the way I carry myself after him. And whether he has these traits or not, it's the way I've painted his picture in my mind, which is why I might have adopted some of these things the way I have, like subconsciously. So that was also another interesting thing to kind of go through. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of it is just doing what I should be doing, not because it's the right thing to do, not necessarily because I want attention or recognition. The positivity one, I was like, this one was the big, the right hook through the jaw to me, because it made a lot of sense in my mind as to why I do this. And it was like, I always try to get people to see the positive sides of whatever outcome or whatever issue that they're having, or ways they can work through that, because I'm projecting onto others the advice that I won't take myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm projecting what I wish I would do more of without realizing it. And again, further down the questions, I kind of explored why I do that. But here, it's just kind of, that's why I would seem like that, because I always want people to see, be positive of what things, or being able to let things go. And it's like, oh, it's because I don't do that myself, and I don't want other people to feel that. So that's why I push it onto others.
Yeah. Oh shit.
And then the last few things are like, I'm a very stubborn person, which is both good and bad. It kind of helps drive my work ethic and what makes people think that I work hard. At least one of the things of why people think I work hard, but it also can make me hard-headed at times. Kind of, if my stubbornness gets matched with my emotions, then they could go very, very good or very bad for me. Because I got to stick to that for a while. Let's see. And then kind of how I wrapped it up is like, I don't view myself as being special or skilled in any way. Like, I see myself as ordinary and as average as it gets. I just kind of describe myself as a simple person who knows what he believes in because he's stubborn and is striving towards what I think is right, while having stumbles and shortcomings along the way. It's kind of the last kind of message that I left for myself. And I was perfectly okay with that. Like, I was like, I'm okay with that's how I'm described. Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like I'm okay with just being known as simple and just, striving towards doing what I think is right. And yeah, that was kind of a long paragraph of everything, but yeah, that's kind of how I ended up describing myself, which, I mean, as you can tell, it was easily a lot more negative than the way I thought others would view me. But I thought I had to be as honest as I could writing that down, because then I could try to fix things or change things as I see fit. But if I wasn't honest in that specific section itself, I don't think I would have learned as much from this whole assignment as I did.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for sharing, man. I know that sounded like you put a lot of like critical thought and, you know, true analysis to, you know, do what you truly think about yourself. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of the things that you mentioned that I was like, damn, yeah, you know, and I felt that thought at some point or another. And I had a question though.
Yeah, what's up?
Right? But as I was trying to pay attention to you, I kind of started forgetting about it too. But it was like that concept of always doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know, and that's why you feel like you don't deserve praise. And I was curious, I was like, where do you think that kind of stems from? I know, I don't know if you like explored into that topic a little bit more.
I think, again, that kind of comes from my dad. And I think I compare my successes or what I do to him a lot and realize I'm not doing nothing. Or at least I feel that way, right? He works construction and he's working at a meatpacking plant, but right now he's doing construction. You know, he'll get up at 3-4 in the morning, go work all day, come back at 7, 8, 9 p.m., right? And I never heard him once complain about nothing. Never, you know, he's always positive and being happy, and you know, anytime I try to compliment him or anything, he'd just be like, oh, you know, kind of like a nice like thank you, but not really acknowledging it a whole lot. Yeah, I think I equate a lot of that to him. Into he just does the way he carries himself is just like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm just doing the right thing. There's no need to be praised for, again, just the whole concept of just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I've adopted that as well, that where I just feels like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, you know, like there's nothing, never really making it special. And I will touch on how I interpret that when we talk about their self-worth, because I realized as I explored my self-worth as to why my own accomplishments don't really mean a whole lot to me. So I'm excited to share that later on.
Yeah, I'm interested.
It'll paint a better picture for you, because it tied it all together in my head too, because I was kind of where you were at. It's like, why am I like this?
No. I mean, it makes sense. I think it makes sense. I think we share that in common. You know, your parents, much like my parents, they did a lot of hard work. You know what I mean? Which is, you know, why one of the things I was saying is like, what does hard work even mean? You know, because the example that I had was my dad working, you know, Monday through Friday, waking up at like 3 a.m. and then coming home just to eat dinner and go to sleep, and then doing it again, you know.
Yep.
And sometimes like he'd be gone for weeks at a time because he'd be like in a different state, you know what I mean? And it was all about the work, you know. This is why he's in California right now when my mom is in Nebraska with, you know, and like it was that thing, and that was that. I think, you know, much for you as it was for me. That's kind of why I didn't really support my accomplishments. You know, I didn't really think anything of them because, you know, for football games, for, you know, speech meets, for doing anything, my parents weren't in the audience. Like, they weren't there, you know, they didn't go to them. And I didn't ask them to, you know what I mean? It's like, you guys don't have time. I get it. It's not a big deal. And so I definitely like relate to you on that one, because it, you know, it's definitely affected the way that I view life. And
it's kind of like the whole just first gen immigrant mentality, right? Like, hard work to me is going out, working 14 hours a day in a physically demanding jobs, right? And, you know, dedicating and sacrificing a lot of things for your family. Like, that's hard work. For me, it's like me getting good grades, or me, you know, working on schoolwork. Like, that's not hard work. Like, I think that's always been a mentality to me, is like what my parents did, is leaving their home country to come here, right, and work hard jobs to provide me a future. That's hard work. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and, you know, setting myself up for a better future. But this isn't hard work, right? Like, this is easy. This stuff is a lot simpler, a lot easier than having to go do that.
And I guess my question to you is, then why does this feel so hard then? Because it's paradoxical, right? It shouldn't feel hard, but yet, like I've talked about before, there's this gap between me knowing what I have to do and me actually, you know, mustering the courage to go do it. And it's not like, and so in some ways it's like, yeah, man, like it's difficult. It's difficult. And I don't know, man. I don't know. But I get this feeling that the thing that I'm doing shouldn't be hard, because, you know, there's all these other things that you could be like killing yourself in the sun, like my dad would do. And he'd come home and mom would throw him in a cold shower. That was his routine. And he'd be like, you know, getting close to having a sunstroke, like a heat stroke. And like the water would literally steam off of his body and stuff. And like my mom would put him back together, feed him some food, put him to bed, and he'd do that all over again, you know. And that was just to provide food on the table. Like, I remember seeing his checks, like, and it was like $400, $500 for 80 hour week, like 80 hours a week. And we'd spend all that money on food, you know, and have a little bit left over for the bills, you know. We lived in a trailer, there was like 9 of us, and so I, you know, you talking about this brings up like a really good point, because like, I don't know, what are your thoughts, man? Why does this feel hard, man? What like, we can't win, man, because like we're thinking it shouldn't be hard, and then it feels it feels really hard. And
I don't know.
What are your thoughts?
I think, I don't know, lose perspective. We kind of get comfortable. I think that's the biggest thing. We get comfortable, and at times, and I think this goes to the education system, but being rewarded for not having to do your best, you know, at least a lot of times you can get by without really putting too much effort in, right? I will speak for myself, and I think for you as well. At least growing up, we could get by with not really trying, right? and that builds in that sense of confidence, like not confidence, but a sense of what was I gonna say? Comfort, right? It's like, I don't have to really do it. And then when it gets hard, kind of crumble a little bit, you know, or that habit lingers. And I think that's why college and just like life in general, as you move on, feels hard, or it feels, we think it should be, not, I won't say life, but like when we talk about schoolwork, and more specifically, it's like it should be easy, but it's not. But I have really bad habits still. And then even when I fall to those habits and do things last minute, like I'll still pass and do fine. So then it's kind of that perpetual cycle of just not living up to your potential. You know, and I don't know, I guess mainly just comfort, just falling into comfort and having those bad habits.
And so then, why do you think you want to save other people from experiencing this, but you're not as willing to save yourself?
I'll get to that. Again, that'll be
okay. Okay. And that's at the end. Okay.
Yeah. It was
interesting,
kind of like the skeleton key to open everything up and close everything together.
Yeah, interesting. Well, the reason I'm asking is because that's basically what's on my mind right now. Like that's like you kind of described we have a lot of like intersecting points. And so you definitely touched on a lot of things that, you know, I mean, one, you did a really good job, and two, like, I feel like we're really similar in a lot of the things that you talked on. I felt it in my soul. It was like, damn, yikes, man. Except the couple, like, and it's made me kind of question a lot too, because you know, I've always been, you know, cool with letting people perceive me as kind of like a wallflower. And you know, I guess I've accepted the hard fact that I'm average, and it's okay, you know. I'm not like born incredibly gifted, but I was definitely very fortunate with my life and where I was born and all that stuff. And you know, in some ways, like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm at a loss of words right now. I'm not gonna lie. Like, interesting.
I mean, do you want to hit on more things of how you view yourself, or do you feel like you've already kind of covered that well enough, or there's things you want to add to that?
How do I view myself? I mean, it's a good question, dude, because it's like, yeah, I think we can. I'll touch a little bit on that. Well, one of the biggest things that I felt personally was I don't ever feel like I put in 100% into something. I feel like whenever I start something, I always start with good intentions, and like my heart's in the right place, you know, like it's genuine. And then as time goes on and things happen, and, you know, your good habits erode against the test of time, especially for me. I find myself like grasping at strings to make it happen, you know, and usually I pull it off, like, but there's always that feeling that I didn't quite put in 100%, you know, and then, you know, I get rewarded. I get like recognition for something, or awarded something, or I get told, hey, you did such a good job. And it's like,
why?
Well, fuck. Yeah. It's like, what? I didn't even put 100% into this. Like, why are you giving me this, you know? And I even drew a little graph. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's like this little graph thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts at 100%, and then it like slowly tapers down a little bit, and then at a certain point, it's just like, and then barely make it through. And it's kind of like how I feel with where my effort goes. You know what I mean? Like it's usually enough to get the job done, and it's weird, and I hate that. And I wish it was more like a constant linear up. But at the same time, it's much like you. Like I educate myself on all these things, and in a way, like I have this feeling that like I'm gathering all this knowledge, not for me, but for other people. Like I'm so quick to be like, oh hey, yeah, you're struggling, dude, let me help you, man. Here, I can tell you exactly what you need to do, and these are the answers, and if you do this, you're gonna have a wonderful life. And then you see me over there, and I'm in the same exact shitty places as them, but I want them to succeed. But it's like when it comes to me, it's like, oh, I'll be all right,
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so yeah, I think that has been very interesting. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's just really hard to, because I think a lot of what you said covered a lot of what I was feeling. I just didn't find a way to put it into words. So I appreciate you sharing what you shared, because I think it greatly opened up my eyes, because yeah, man, because I'm really quick to care about other people. I really am. I have that, that instinct that, others, I want to help ease their suffering, and I don't care what it costs. And it goes back to, a lot of things in my life. Like I remember having a final at 7:30 in the morning. And coming home at like 2 a.m. because I was going to shower and then go back to studying, because that was going to be my first all-nighter in college. And I saw Isaac, who was looking really sad in his bedroom, because we were roommates at this time.
And, that was a while ago now.
yeah, it was sophomore year. Yep. And he was having some relationship issues, and I was like, I'd just gotten out of the shower, and I saw he was all morose and sad looking and shit. And I was like, I just walked by him, right? I didn't say anything at first, because he looked like he was in his head. And I put some clothes on, and I was like, dude, I can't walk past this again, dude. I need to, something inside told me I need to stay here. I need to talk to him. I can't let him continue on like this. And so literally from about 2 a.m. until 6, I stayed there and I talked to him. And I like to think it helped him. It helped him, and I definitely bombed that exam, but
but it's okay.
I didn't care. I do it again in a heartbeat. And it's like, yeah. But I think I'm gonna stop it right there. If anything else comes to mind, I think I'll talk about it. But
okay.
Right now, dude, I'm just kind of feeling like it's difficult to explain.
No, I get you. And we always say this, you and me are very similar yet very different. We interpret things very similar at times, or we end at the same conclusion often, but we get to it in very different ways most of the time. I think it's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And we share a lot of same experiences, at least kind of growing up, and our backgrounds are very similar, and we spent a lot of time together while we're here in college. So I think we learned a lot from each other, and I think that's why this has been as good as it has been for us to learn, because we bounce a lot of things off of each other, which is kind of what's helped us to learn. But so kind of moving forward from all that, so tell me more about how people actually viewed you, because I guess I'll explain it to people. Part of this exercise was to go and ask people in our lives to let us know how they view us, right? To be as honest as they can be, and just give us a true description of what they think of us and how they view us. And that was super scary for both of us, I think, because we didn't know what we were going to get. We didn't even know who we were going to ask, whether people were even going to want to respond to us or not. So that made things interesting, but I'll go ahead and let you start if you want, with kind of what you found out, kind of some common themes that you saw throughout there. How'd that compare to what we've talked about already?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was terrifying, dude. It was terrifying, but it was fairly rewarding too in the process. So I asked Shadid, although Shadid, she kind of, lost track of time and didn't give me her feedback right away. So that's totally fine. I'm sure she'll probably roast me, and I'll tell you about it later. But then I asked one of the doctors that I've been working with a lot in like small groups and stuff, and he kind of told me a couple of things. Going through the things that he told me, he's like, I mean, I'm not gonna say it all. I'm just gonna give you the main points. And from his observations of me, he seems like, he said that I make other people pretty comfortable, which I thought was an interesting concept. And I typically don't like to dominate discussions, which is very, very, very appropriate, because I hate being the big dog, and I don't need it, and I don't want it.
Everybody.
Yeah, I don't need it, and I don't want it, and in a way it's kind of two components to that. It's like, one, I don't feel like I'm capable of doing it, which might not be the most healthy way, but at the same time, it also doesn't matter to me. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like it just needs to be up here, and at least it's just like a combination of both those things, and sometimes I don't know what the hell's going on, and that's okay too. And I mean, he said a couple of those things, and he also said that he was, he respected the fact that I reached out to him. I don't think a lot of people typically like to do this kind of thing. So if there's anybody out there, definitely ask for feedback, because people tend to appreciate that, because it's not easy, dude. You feel like an idiot typing out that email, and it's
I sent the text, so you're already far more official than I am.
I couldn't just text, man. I had to send an email, because I was like, dude, I feel bad. Like, I'm gonna make them text it with their thumbs? Like, no, man.
No.
Like,
I just had them send it through like an email or something. But
you just texted them
to ask. I first just texted them.
That's hilarious, no, dude.
I would call them, but I don't have the balls to just call people randomly like that.
Yeah, dude. Oh man. No, but yeah, I sent an email because I was like, that's probably the most professional way to approach them, and I didn't feel like I could text them and be like, yo, hook it up. But another person was, you remember Colonel Pierre? Did you ever meet her? She was my professor in military science.
Yeah, I think I don't think I ever met her, but I think I've seen her when you needed to talk to her or something.
Yeah. So I asked her, and it was funny because it was just like a whole cluster. Like, it was a clusterfuck, man, because I feel like I didn't explain the way I should have, and it just made it very rough. But regardless, she she told me a lot of good things, right? A lot more positive. And the one thing that I think she caught on to, which I was happy that she said something about it, because then it made me feel like this was that much more real,
Yeah.
And because if somebody just sends you all positive things, it's very off-putting, at least for me. You don't need to butter my biscuits, bro. Like it's I want you to tell me honest, and I want you to give it to me nice and sweet. It's like, hey, I know I'm not perfect. And if you tell me that I am, I'm just gonna call you a liar. It's that easy, right? She said that I was always a bit melancholy, and she said she couldn't ever pick up if it was because I was just more mature than other cadets, and not as easily excitable. But she said, like, sometimes, like, I was genuinely just down, or very serious. And I think that that's fair, because there was a lot of moments throughout my undergrad where I felt not right. There's a lot of things that that I did that I messed up. I made mistakes, and there was like a lot of like bad, a lot of evil that I did, and it affected me, because it's not like it was my intention to hurt people or to do bad stuff. It just kind of happened, and it was things that I carried around with me for a while, and it affected the way that I did things, and it affected my school performance. It affected everything. And so there were times where I would just like go, did the mandatory thing, and then I dipped out, and that was most of the time, because one, I didn't feel comfortable because nobody related to me. Like I was still like legit the only Mexican until Damien showed up, and even that, like, he had a way different life than I did, and though he did share hardships, it wasn't until he showed up, and that was already my senior year, and so it was like all these things kind of put together, man. I just never really felt comfortable around all those people, like truly like to be myself, and so so I think the fact that she was able to pick that up, I think was a really big thing. And she also she also said that I was the most mature, and she said it was because of my childhood. Like I had a lot of kind of like, the way she said it was, I put a huge weight on my shoulders because of my family and the people that I represent. And she said it's like, it's okay to have that kind of like, that weight. Just, remember to have fun and live life, because it's like, it shouldn't be all serious and, all that. And so, still super nice. I thought it was honest, thought it was fair. And it was just interesting, because, if you ask me like what I felt like my undergrad, especially in ROTC, was like, it was, I wouldn't be saying nice things about myself, like I kind of like that Drake song says, right? It's like, except I say it to myself. It's they scream out my failures, but they whisper my accomplishments, and that's kind of the way that I am. It's like I'm quick to be like, "Ooh, I'm trash because of this," and then I'm very quietly like, "Oh yeah, look, I got this though," very, very quietly whisper, and then after a couple of minutes, it's like on to the next thing, moving on. Don't like to kind of sit on my laurels. Don't really have many laurels anyways, but I don't really care about that. And then I asked Moy, and Moy's was interesting too. He's too nice. He's way too nice. it's funny because like you said, it's really quick to just try to debunk what everybody says. Like my family means a lot to me. I think that's a big part. And I respect the sacrifices that my parents did for me, but at the same time, like that has made me set the bar so high for myself that sometimes I wonder if it's even a good thing anymore, and it's scary to have that thought. It's scary to have that, to say that out loud, it's because I don't know, man, sometimes I feel like I'm like not making the most of the opportunities that I have. And it kind of hurts, you know what I mean? And I want to do something about it, but I feel like I'm fighting myself every step of the way, and I don't understand why it's so paradoxically difficult, Well, I feel like it should be easy because this sacrifice isn't anything like my parents' sacrifice, but at the same time, it's like, what am I moving through? Like, I feel like I'm moving through quicksand or like a swamp, like every time, the more that I fight, the harder it is. And so I thought that was interesting. But he did give me like my fair share of stuff, like servant leader. I think that's very appropriate of me. I think I like to do more for others than I'm willing to do for myself. I'm not a big self-gratifying kind of guy.
And I think people can take that away from both of us, from everything we've said so far.
Yeah,
we haven't said it enough already.
yeah, you're right. And then he called me disciplined, which I thought was really interesting, because I can be, but I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
It kind of comes back to that thing where discipline is the answer for like everything in life. But I'm much quicker to give it to somebody else and tell them what they need to do versus me going out and doing it. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to work on more. And it's like one of my goals is I want to walk the walk, not just talk it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like kind of why I'm doing this. I'm trying to figure out why I keep fighting myself, even though I want to be the example, not necessarily to
to get praised,
to recognize, to praise for it, but to show that it can be done. To show the people that kind of look like us, the kids that don't have these positive role models, man. Because if to kind of like approaching it how our parents are, like if their parents are like that, but they don't have the handful of good people that is willing to to guide them in the right direction, you can go downhill real fast. You can go somewhere else. And so that, and then I also asked Badelia, man. I'm not trying to take up too much time because I feel like I've been talking for a while too, but
was Badelia able to get back to you?
Yeah, I called him.
Oh, you called him?
Yeah, I called him.
He's in the hospital
like,
right now, as far as I know.
Yeah. I've been asking him like what's going on, and he still hasn't texted me back. Somebody texted me, so maybe it was him. So I'll see what's up. I'm curious to see if he has a daughter or a son.
Yeah, earlier this morning they were still at the hospital without knowing. Without the baby getting there yet. So it was approaching the 24-hour mark of being at the hospital. So.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? Oh, indeed. Oh man. All right. Well, I was talking about Delia on the phone, and I got a funny thing to talk about to you later. I have a proposition actually. But anyways, Mr. Badelia was pretty nice too. It's interesting because I was talking to him on the phone when he was giving me the feedback, and I was like, wow, this feels interesting, because he was like giving me fair praise. He was like, he acknowledged the fact. He's like, man, look, you've made a lot of mistakes, and that's okay, and the thing that differentiates you from others is that you're learning from them, or you're trying to. And I was like, wow, yeah, you know what? I think you're absolutely right. That was one thing I'd give myself,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's true. It's like, hey, dude, I may not be where I want to be, but like, at least I'm trying. At least I'm taking the time to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something more than I did in the past. So I consider that a win.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really liked what he told me is I'm always really quick to motivate people, really quick to help them see what they can't see. That's the way he put it.
That's good.
And
right
yeah, I really like that. I was like, damn, dude. I told him, I was like, dude, you left me at a loss for words, man, because I don't even know what to say to that. Because it felt nice. It felt right, because I always try to get people to dig deeper and figure out like what it is that they truly desire, what it is that truly motivates them, that inspires them, and give them a little bit of taste of that magic, and show them that they're capable of creating more than what they think. Yeah, but I'm gonna stop it at that for right now, and I'm gonna let you kind of talk a little bit about what you discovered in your journey with this.
I asked a couple people. I got some responses back. Hearing you speak made me think of other people that I wish I would have asked, so I might just ask them anyways. Because after looking at this stuff and kind of talking about it, it's like, well, it's actually kind of nice to break it down and stuff like that. So maybe that's another assignment that I'll give myself later on, to reach out to a couple different types of people and then kind of hear what they have to say. I asked Selma, and I knew that her response would be the fairest and I would say the most accurate, because that's who I spent the most time with. So she would have seen more parts of me that others won't really get to. She kind of, one of the big things that kind of stood out to me was saying, I guess I can pull it up instead of paraphrasing before I just kind of start making stuff up. But I know one of the first big topics was talking about me having a big heart. And this is something that you've kind of hit on before when we just talked, but saying, seeing it in your eyes and hearing it, the tone of your voice change when you talk about helping others. And I know that, like, that was like, I know that's true, because I can feel that in myself when I do that. And I don't know if I've always have, but I think when we talk, we've kind of discussed that a little bit more, so it's made me more aware to it. And I like the fact that she says, I know that you're disciplined for certain things. Again, that term of discipline, which is like, I don't know if I really am disciplined in anything, but then she left it like, but there's still things that you need to work, like need room for leave room for improvement. I was like, I appreciate that, because like, kind of like what we talk about, don't give me all positive stuff. Like, that doesn't help me.
Don't butter my biscuits.
Yeah. Don't water my plants, like.
My Hawaiian rolls.
But then she talked about my whole stubbornness or getting upset at small things, and that's very accurate, because I am very stubborn. I can't get upset at small things and just shut down.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at like knowing that that's happening within me and trying to reverse that so it doesn't happen, but I'm still human, and I still let that still happens often. I can recover from it quickly. I can shut down and be like upset about something, and give me 2 minutes or 5 minutes and I'll be over it, and like I'll be back to normal. But that definitely happens. And she talks about like, I can see that helps you push yourself to be better in a lot of things, but I also see how that can hold you back at times as well. And I was like, yeah, I feel that. That's in words what I know about me. And the coolest thought that I read from hers was you can have difficult conversations and hold yourself and remain calm very well. Which I thought was interesting because I guess I've never acknowledged that before. I mean, if I kind of reflect on it, I feel like it's accurate, but like it was interesting to kind of see that.
It's funny how the little things are the things that get you, but you're willing to have the hard conversation and be legit about it, and be cool, level-headed usually.
Exactly.
But, interesting dichotomy. But keep going, man. All good stuff.
Yeah, so I appreciated hers. Those are kind of the highlights of that one. Then I asked one of my really good friends, his name's Brock. It's kind of who I work with in the mornings at the rec, my 5:30 a.m. crew. You can build quite a relationship with someone when you work with them at 5:30 in the morning. And you do it willingly. So I appreciated his feedback as well. I think overall, with the feedback that I got, it wasn't enough of what I wanted. Like I feel like it wasn't critical enough.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it was just too nice. Like, and it's hard to ask that from someone, and I'm not going to plainly say like, hey, don't put any positive stuff, just tell me what I need to work on, because that can be bad too. But I still can take away a lot of stuff from what they share, and I appreciate their time and kind of helping with all of this. But it was definitely, and I think it's because we both gravitate towards what can I fix rather than what do I do well, right? So, but so he kind of talked about some of the kind of similar things. He talked about my humility, and what I appreciate about him, he's a very humble person, but sometimes too much in my opinion. And it kind of relates back to everything we've kind of discussed of just, I'm quick to help others or downplay everything I do. And while, that's being humble, sometimes people are just encouraging me to, give myself a pat in the back more often, basically. So I appreciated that. He kind of talks about just being, when he first started working with me, he enjoyed the fact that the first shift we were able to talk the entire shift. He's like, I just felt like a very easy person to talk to and just felt comfortable, which kind of went back to how I thought others view me, right? Like I was like, oh, look, here it is, this being explained itself, right? Or like manifesting in real life. And the humility part as well. It's very goal-oriented, which I thought was interesting. Because I feel like a lot of times I don't have a direction to things, so maybe I make it seem like I do. Which I do have some goals. I think a lot of people, especially like at the rec, see me striving for my goals as far as like fitness goes. But maybe outside of that, I don't know how many goals I really have set for myself.
Doesn't translate.
Yeah. But then he talks about is like, once he accomplishes his goals, he acts like nothing's happened and moves on to a new challenge. Which is like, yeah, that's accurate. I was like, cool, got it done, check it off, let's move on. And then just kind of talks about back to he truly cares and listens to you, which again, I was pretty spot on, I thought, on how I thought other people would describe me and to what I actually kind of got back. So I was kind of happy about that. It's like, yeah, look, I self-reflected correctly. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing that I got from that one, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed looking at that. Yeah, another small thing in there as well was just being able to have difficult conversations with people and being able to provide solutions to things rather than just being part of the problem, which I also thought was interesting. The last one that I got was from my friend Becky, and she's someone that I've gotten really close to this year. Our friendship kind of started off because we both kind of went through a close death nearly at the same time. At least that's kind of what's got us talking a little bit more. And like now she's kind of one of my best friends, and I almost see her like a little sister almost. But her response was kind of around the same way that I thought it would be as well, and it shared a lot of the similar themes as the other two did. Which again, the themes that came up were like the gentle and caring aspect. Let's see. I like this one made sense to me, whereas like he has a demeanor about him that motivates others, and I thought that was a really nice compliment, because I don't feel like that at times, but I think it can be like, I don't know, it felt nice to kind of hear that one, I guess, especially when it's like demeanor, like what does that mean, like do I carry myself like that? It was just an interesting kind of topic to go over. And the one that she emphasized the most is selfless, which I thought correlated with everything else, with just going out of my way to help others far more than I would go out of my way to help myself, right? Like just genuinely just caring about others' well-being a lot more than I would my own, I guess. Then hit on listening as well, like the other ones have, and again, I kind of described already why I thought that would be. And two last things. Said he's a lot stronger than he believes he is as well. Like he, both physically and mentally. Because I always, like, again, just downplay a lot of my things. So I thought that was pretty accurate. And the last one was like, he will never admit to any of this either, and will probably give me reasons as to why it's not all true. And I was like, yeah, that was accurate. Because as I was reading it, I was like, nope. So that was interesting. But yeah, those are the three feedbacks that I got. And they all kind of had the similar themes, you know, kind of in their own words. But I thought it ended up being pretty accurate as to how I thought other people would view me. So it was kind of that come true, basically.
Yeah. If there's anything that could, I'm gonna just add a little bit to the one that Moy gave me.
Mm-hmm.
His was probably like the epitome of what I imagined people would think of me as, just based on kind of how I've gone about my life and who I've talked to and what people usually say about me and stuff. And
yeah.
But in a way, that's not what I wanted to talk about,
mm-hmm.
you know, because like I said, I like to focus on the negatives more than the positives. And
mm-hmm.
those are all things that, they may see me as, and my actions may sometimes point in that direction, but I don't feel like that is, what is inside trying to pull itself out. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird to kind of put it that way, but it's like, there's just something inside of me that doesn't feel like that's truly what I have on the inside of myself, like there's something else there, something else getting in the way of that, like I definitely think that could be something I could embody, but not yet. Like there's something there that I'm trying to work through, which is, I guess, kind of what I'm doing here. And so I kind of just like skipped over that and went straight to like all the things that feel like people look at me that are wrong with me, like that's what I focused on. Like I just want to make that little disclaimer, because it seemed great. But all right, you want to move on to the next part?
Yeah, I think just overall, that experience itself, just the whole getting feedback, was a very scary one, but I think was very beneficial as well.
Yeah,
I'm glad we added that as part of this, because we could have easily not done that and just focused on how we think others view us and then how we view ourselves, and does that match or not. But I think this made it real, right? At least that's kind of what I thought. It kind of made it real. So the last question that we need to hit on is, after all of that, what do you build your self-worth around, right? Because it's all related to that final question of just kind of self-worth. So do you want to start with that, or do you want me to?
So I'll say this first idea, and then I'm gonna switch it over to you, and then
we'll go from there.
I'll probably just jump around. So, because I asked myself just straight up, it's like, what are the things I value? What are the things that I feel build my self-worth around? And this one, I feel like this one, it felt right. It felt genuine, which is not something I can typically say that I feel all the time. And it was, I value the discovery of others, like of discovering their desires, their talents, their passions, and then like I guess the things that make them authentically them, and then having a genuine conversation with them about that, and just listening to how they talk, to like, just, there's nothing more satisfying than when somebody is super excited about something they love, and I think that is one of the things that makes me really, really happy, and one of the things that I enjoy the most in just in my life, like if I, like, I guess it made me think about, like, if I only had 24 hours left, I don't know if I would go and experience things by myself or anything like that. I just want to have some genuine conversation with people, and just listening to them talk about, like, what their perfect lives would look like, and what makes them happy, and what are the things that that they're capable of bringing into this world. And I don't know, the parts of a person that makes them them, that nothing else matters, you know what I mean? And I don't know if I'm sure you felt these conversations before, it's like you lose track of time, you don't even know what time it is, like you're just in this moment of just exchange. Having those conversations and being able to elicit that with people, I think, is one of the things that I build my self-worth around. Because it's not something that many people try to do, and at least not in my circle, right? I can't, if you have people like that in your life, dude, hold on to them, because like shit, I just genuinely enjoy talking to people about that. Like it's fun, it's exciting, it makes me happy, and you know, in a way it's because like, you know, I've lost my authenticity before, and it's not fun, you know. It kind of sucks, and it's rough, and it hurts, and you know, there's so many things that go wrong, and it's just overall rough. And you know, being able to see that in somebody else and it just light up, man. Like it's a wonderful thing. And so that's something that I really enjoy being able to do. And you know, I wish I could do more of it. But with that, I'm gonna switch it over to you because I'm still thinking.
No, that's fine. I like what you said because I feel like I can relate to it a lot. And again, it goes back to the fact that we're very similar. So I definitely get what you mean by that. And so this was the shortest one answer for me. This was one line. And all I put was, what do I build my self-worth around? Is I build it around lessening the suffering of others. And nothing else. And that kind of spoke to me the most. The fact that it's one line and then an empty sheet. Because that's what was the truest to me. I was sitting out in the balcony just staring up at the sky and just had one of those instrumental stations on from Spotify. Just looking up, and I was just like, well, what do I build my self-worth around? Because I had no idea. I had too much clutter in my mind that I need to take a step back and just go sit outside and enjoy the warmth, and then enjoy the nature scenery. And that's the conclusion I came to, is just I build my self-worth around lessening the suffering for others. And that's why everything else doesn't matter to me. That's why my accomplishments don't matter, because it doesn't fit that. Because me going out of my way to help others brings such joy and happiness to me that nothing else does. You know what I mean? That's why when I get recognition for something, or I get an award or something, it doesn't bring the same type of joy and excitement as just helping someone else. That I think that's why I disregard it so much, because it's just not the same. Like I big believer that it's not about getting to the top of the mountain, it's how many people you brought with you, right? And I don't know, in my mind, that just makes the most sense to me. It's just like, that's why I don't care about awards or recognition, or that's why I don't need to be in the spotlight. That's why I put so much attention to others, because I want people to feel like they matter and like they're important. And it's not like I think any less of myself or think that I'm not important, but this is what brings me joy and happiness, right? So by me focusing on others, I'm focusing on my own happiness as well. So I don't know, that's kind of the main conclusion that I came to.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, that definitely spoke to me, you know. Judging from all the millions of hours we spent talking about life and its mysteries, I think that's a pretty succinct one-liner of what you build your self-worth around, is like how many people you help. And, you know, in a way, I'm gonna talk a little bit, and if anything doesn't feel like it fits, just feel free to correct me. But I said, I'm gonna start saying a couple of things, and if anything doesn't feel like it's right, just correct me. And you know, as I was thinking, and based on all the things that you said, you know, the experience of our parents doing what they've done to give us the opportunities that we have made us view hard work in a different manner, and has also made us have a desire to, make that sacrifice worth it. To make the most of it. And we also see that there's a lot of other people that have that issue. They have a lot of, they've been in the same boat, and in some ways we are more fortunate than they are, because of where we're at this point already. And it's interesting, man. It's interesting to see, because like we're very similar, and I feel like we've come to the same conclusion. Because if you look at underneath valuing the discovery of others, man, it's just like I like helping them fucking figure out what makes them happy. It's I'd like just genuinely helping people. That's that's what's underneath it, and it makes me wonder. It's like, why did we come to this conclusion? Like,
I don't know. And I think one reason, and kind of along with what you were saying, is our parents sacrificed so much, right? And we saw them put us above themselves so much that I think, at least I'll speak for myself, that I think the best way for me to repay that to them is for me to pay it forward
to others. Do that same thing to others. Except we're not looking at just our families, we're looking at our community, the world, whatever. Probably start with our community first, start with one person, make it two. But I think that's what I was trying to get to, man. I just couldn't find the words to get there. But it's interesting because, I'll speak for myself on this one, but I'm struggling because there's a million steps between where I'm at right now and where I want to be. And sometimes I feel like that mountain is so high that I'm not making any progress. And it's, I don't know, man. It makes me wonder, like, how do I have to view it? How do I have to view it for me to be able to align myself with this idea? Because that's what it's about. It's about, I want to lessen the suffering of others too. I want to make sure that, kids have a target that they should shoot above, because I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of kids that are in similar positions to where we are, that if they, see somebody that looks like them and that had the same experience as them, then they can
then it's possible in their mind.
Yeah, then it's like, I think, is it Roger Bannister? Roger Bannister, right? The dude who broke the 4-minute mile.
4-minute mile, yep.
And then he broke that barrier, and now everybody's doing it, man. Yeah. But not me, because
I'm not breaking a 4-minute mile anytime soon.
We'll see what happens, man.
I know it's physically possible, but
yeah. But yeah, man, and I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think are the things that are hindering you? Because like you said, you're more likely to help others with the advice that you're not willing to take yourself. And then I have another question too, but I'll let you answer that one first.
And we've talked about this before, as to part of the reason why we want to succeed in what we do is because we don't we don't see people that look like us succeed very often on a large scale, right? Like on a grand scale. So we want to be able to be those people for the people under us. And I don't know if that's fueled by our younger siblings or other people that we've known. But ultimately, again, it goes back to we want to succeed not for ourselves, but because we want to open the doors for the people behind us. And I think we forget that sometimes. We forget, we get lazy. We get caught up in the difficulties of today rather than the possibilities of tomorrow. Right? Like, the step in front of us is the hardest one, right? Like, we're like, I don't know if I can take this step. But little do we know, the summit is 3 steps ahead, right? But that wouldn't matter because we're stuck looking at this one step, and it's like, well, like, how am I gonna get through this one? And I think it's finding a right balance of acknowledging that what we're doing right now may be difficult, but the reward at the end of helping the amount of people that will help is what will make it worth it. And that's a hard thing to internalize on a day-to-day basis. Because it's easy to get wrapped up like, damn, I have to watch all these lectures, I had to study for these exams, I had to do all these papers. And because that sucks, like, because those things in themselves aren't part of our mission. Right? They're not part of lessening the suffering of others. Me doing this paper isn't going to make someone else feel better, right? It's me getting through all of this. It's what's going to put me in a position to help others. So it's just reminding ourselves that that's what's going to be worth it. And it's hard to do that. But I think that's kind of the best answer that I can put forward.
It's a pretty damn good answer, man. Do have to say so myself. That's good. And so I guess moving forward, how are you going to frame it so that you can remind yourself of this idea every day?
Well, lucky for me, I have set reminders around this desk that hint at this mission, that now I've acknowledged to myself what my mission is or what my self-worth is built around. So that in itself will be a way to frame this, but I think it's just, I don't know, just having to find ways to step back throughout my day to remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? Like, we talk about our why a lot. Like, we talk about why, what drives you, what motivates you. And it's always been kind of difficult to come up with that. But it's always pointed to this kind of similar statement of just lessening the suffering for others. So just finding what the best ways for me to remind myself of that is. And whether that's, I reach out to people more often throughout my day and asking them how they're doing, because that'll remind me, like, hey, I liked how that felt. I need to keep doing this so I can put myself in a better position to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or things like that. I don't know. I think it's something that I still need to brainstorm and kind of figure out what am I going to respond best to when I'm faced with that adversity of trying to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because it's not always going to be the same. I think it's kind of what I figured out. It's like, I'll have to remind myself of my why in different ways in order to get over the obstacle that I'm in front of. Right? It's kind of like a medication. One medication doesn't work for everything, right? There's different meds that you could take for different ailments that you may have. So why would I only have one possible way to remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So I want to set up different ways that I know I'll respond well to in those type of situations. Yeah. And I don't know what those are yet. That's still something that I had to develop, but I think that's kind of the best way I can put it.
That's a good answer too, man. Have you so I mean, as far as this goes, I think that's, man, I think we talked a decent amount. I think we're pushing 2 hours here.
Yeah, I think this is probably a great way to wrap it up right here. Yeah, I think we left the people with a lot to kind of ponder on, a lot of our own insight on our own lives. Do what you want with that. Do as you wish. Hopefully, we were able to kind of convey some thoughts through that to them. I know I learned more again, just even speaking about it. But yeah, I mean, I encourage you all to try this exercise if you've, there's just a lot that you can learn about yourself through this, and that's kind of what we're about around here. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the people with?
No, man, I think this has been a very challenging and very rewarding thing to get into, and it's interesting because I haven't found all the answers, but I've still found way more than what I thought I was gonna find.
Agreed.
So I'm very grateful for that, and I think it's definitely worth giving it a shot. Shit, what do you got to lose, man?
For sure. All right. Well, everyone, again, we appreciate you tuning in this week. Hit that subscribe button, hit a like button if you enjoyed what you heard. Leave us a comment. Let us know kind of if you do the exercise, kind of walk us through how you did it, what you learned. Feel free to leave us anything that you'd like us to discuss. We're open to suggestions as well. We want to be able to learn from you guys as much as we're learning from ourselves. But yeah, share with people that you think might need this message as well. You never know who else could be struggling with this or wanting to take a step forward in this. So, feel free to share that with the people. And that's all I got, unless you got something else.
Thank you.
All right, y'all take care, and we'll see you guys again next week.